What would it be, Ryan the Great? And today we are reacting to the Eagles' win over the Jacksonville Jaguars that just happened today. Oh, baby, my Eagles are here, and they are here to stay. The Eagles are the only undefeated team in the NFL right now. We're going to be talking about my reaction to the game, my analysis. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about the Jaguars. But before we get right into it, guys, make sure you subscribe and post notifications on. Go subscribe to my brother, Ryan the Great Vlogs. Also, make sure you follow me on Twitch at Ryan the Great Podcast. And also, before we start, I know this happened like freaking 2 weeks ago or like almost a month ago. I don't know. I forgot to mention in one of my videos that I'm saddened to know that Crim6 retired from the CDLs. Even though Crim6 and I have had, well, not I, like personally, he's had a lot of rivalries in the past because he played for the Chicago Huntsmen. He really did help an NYSL get to the champs this year, and I have a lot of respect for Crim6. You will be missed, Crim6, in the CDLs. He's lasted for freaking 10 Call of Duties. I mean, he is... I mean, what a guy, what a guy. Anyway, moving on. We're going to get into the Eagles. Okay, so, the beginning of the game. We're going to throw that out the window, literally. We're going to throw that into the rain. That they started so bad. The offense was absolutely terrible. There was no efficiency, and they picked six. The defense started out terrible. The play calling was terrible. There was that run in the first quarter on 3rd and 5. It's just no consistency in the first quarter. The first quarter was terrible. But then in the second quarter, after the turnover on downs, there was a momentum switch, and they picked it up, and there really was no looking back. The rain did keep Jalen Hurts from working his magic. He only completed 64% of his passes, and we know when there's only shine and no rain, he can complete 70% of his passes. We all know this. We've seen this in the other 3 games. Still in the rain, though, he had 204 yards passing, 38 yards on the ground with a rushing TD. Though it's not good that he's running the ball 16 times. I don't like that because eventually someone's just going to lay him out, and then there goes the season. I don't like that. He needs to quit running the ball so many times. He needs to show us why he is that pure pocket quarterback that we have seen for the past 3 games. Obviously, I want him to run. He's a mobile quarterback. But there's times where you got to realize that injuries are a part of the game and that you need to, be a little more safe. Anyway, Sanders is an absolute monster. There is no reason why the Eagles should not give him a contract by the end of the season. What did he have? He kept finding the opening hole in the A-gap. I think it was more the A-gap because they didn't... I'm kind of surprised the Eagles didn't, they couldn't run around end too well. That's okay. I think it was probably because of the rain and Sanders kept slipping up. I think they tried it a couple times. But he had that great cutback. He does that great cutback that he always does where the line pushes the defensive line to one side. And then I don't know. It's weird the way he does it. I'm going to try and point this out sitting down. So the way he does it is the offensive line is going this way with the defensive line. He plants his foot this way and then cuts back the other way. It's kind of the way a cutback works if you've ever done anything athletic. But anyway, he did really well in that regard. A career high, 134 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an average of 5 yards a carry. He is an absolute monster. Yeah, I kept finding the open holes. There's not really much analysis to give for that because he just looked amazing. Really, nobody could stop him. And I think he did really well in the passing game. He got a couple first downs when we needed it. He was making guys miss all over the place. They were just bouncing off of him. He really looked like a Derrick Henry out there. Just no complaints I have about Miles Sanders today. But we must give the offensive line credit. I will always give the offensive line credit when a running back has an amazing game. They did protect Hurts a lot. They were able to make sure he was okay in the pocket, especially in the rain. Though when guys started getting injured, and I'll talk about it in a minute, when guys did start getting injured, like Mailata and Sayamala, they did start giving up. They did start putting pressure on him. But if those guys are okay, but for the most part, they held up and they opened holes up for Sanders. I think probably the MVP of the offensive line was obviously Jason Kelce. He was making sure that the A-gap was open, and he would block guys upfield to give Sanders that extra room to run. Kelce, an absolute beast in that regard. Though the O-line guys are hurt, I just said Mailata and Sayamalo. And they are definitely key pieces in the offensive line. Jordan Mailata is a absolute beast. Now, I don't know too many guys that really get around him. But we're going to need them next week against the strong Arizona defensive line in J.J. Watt, depending on if he's playing or not. But I don't understand how J.J. Watt's playing against Carolina this week when he had his heart reset or something like that. His heart back into rhythm on Thursday. I don't know how he's playing. What a top G. I mean, really, what a monster. Anyway, moving past that, Brown continues to be consistent. He had 5 catches for 95 yards. He was easily getting open, using his power to beat every cornerback that came in his way. I was a little upset the Eagles did not target him more on third down. As we all know, he is the best third down receiver in the NFL currently. So I mean, not really much to say about that. I think they should line him up though more as the X receiver, because I think that's where he thrives. He's really good at running dig routes. Just an overall amazing receiver. But they should go to him more on third down. He's got that big body where he can use his power to jump high and beat the corners. Goddard, finally the X factor that I've been talking about. I've been hyping up Goddard for the past 4 weeks, and they have finally given him the ball. He's that X factor that I was saying. He could receive the screen passes, and he could use his big body to get 10 yards. He was also catching the ball really well. I was kind of a little surprised. I think they lined him up as the Z receiver a lot. If you guys don't know what the Z means, I mean the slot. They lined him up in the slot a little bit. I think he was mostly lined up as the Y, but I think he was lined up as the Z for a little bit. I think there was one play where he was in the X. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, he was that X factor I've been talking about, that he can be. 5 catches for 72 yards. He should have a touchdown in that, because he dropped that pass in the end zone. Got to be more aware of what's happening. You got to be in the rain. You have to bring the ball in. You can't be using your hands like this, because the ball is more likely to drop. So he has to make sure that he knows his surroundings, but that's an easy fix. He's a top 10 tight end. I think he's leading the league in receiving yards after catch. I'm pretty sure it's that statistic. Don't quote me on that. I'm not entirely sure, but yes, Goddard definitely doing really well, and I expect him to continue. Devontae Smith, he really looked like a bunch of nothing. He couldn't get open, but I think that was a mix of they didn't really call the right play calls for him. I said this last week that he is one of the best comeback route receivers I have ever seen in my entire life. And the weather, I think that was another factor. He couldn't really use his speed, and he was also being double teamed. But we got to bounce back next week, because because we're going to need him against Arizona. And I do want to say this: the play calling I really did not like during the game. I was kind of upset that the Eagles tried it in the beginning to run their explosive plays, but it was raining out and they were playing 10 yards off the receivers. I really was not a fan of the play calling throughout the game. Because they were playing 10 yards off the receivers, we still tried going for 10-yard passes. Why didn't we try throwing a 5-yard pass and then try and run for an extra 10 yards? I think that's what Brown did on his 31-yard reception. He caught a 10-yard pass, and then he ran for another 20. I was a little upset with the play calling in the beginning, and it kind of happened a little more towards the end. But I think that's something that'll be fixed, and that'll show in the film room. So that's okay. I think that we can fix that up a little bit better. So once again, Schmitty's got to come back against Arizona, but I think he'll do that. He's in the game against Detroit, where he didn't even have a catch. He bounced back against Minnesota, and I think he was more covered from this week, because last week he did have a receiving career high in receiving yards and receptions. The defensive line is proving the whole defense is proving to be a top 5 defense. And after I criticized Hassan Reddick, I mean, the Eagles must watch my videos before the game. I mean, really, he really bounced back after I criticized him last week for not showing up to what the other defensive linemen were putting on the field. But I'm actually gonna talk a little bit about him. I'm gonna feature him a little more in this video. He was burnt both tackles. He was knocking them knocking them to the ground. He was just overall amazing. And he made Trevor Lawrence feel uncomfortable in the pocket. And that's something that's not really going to show up in the stat book because Reddick was lined up on the right side, and he would just absolutely destroy the right tackle. And Trevor Lawrence is not that good running to his weak side, so he made Lawrence feel uncomfortable, and he made Lawrence stay in the pocket for too long because Lawrence didn't want to run to his right side, but then he also couldn't run to his left. Or he couldn't run to his. He can't run to his left side because it's his weak side, and also he can't run to his right side because that's where Reddick is. That's just something that's not going to show up in the stat book, but it'll show up in the film room. Hassan Reddick, absolutely a beast. But something that will show up are his strip sacks. These strip sacks came in critical moments, especially when he got that strip sack in the last drive when the Eagles ran that terrible play on 4th down. So Hassan Reddick, absolute beast in that regard, and I expect him to continue doing what he's doing. And I do apologize. I was wrong about Hassan Reddick. I mean, I never said he was bad or anything, but I was definitely wrong in criticizing him for last week. Anyway, the D-line finally figured out how to defend a fuel rushing attack. The defensive line finally figured out how to defend a dual rushing attack. There were some glimpses of weakness though when they gave up a 10-yard run to Travis Etienne, but for the most part they held up. The pros overshadowed the cons. They held Robinson and Etienne for both combined of 61 yards. The defensive line, they're showing improvement. And I think they'll continue to do that. Once again, as I said, they were inflicting pressure on Lawrence, as I was just saying about Reddick, and they were also able to stop the run game pretty well. The only problem was I really only have one complaint about the defense is that they did give up 21 points, and the Jags offense is not that amazing. Actually, no, they did not give up 21 points. I'm sorry. They only gave up 14 points. Okay. Now I'm a little less upset. They gave the Eagles' offense gave up 7 points, and the defense gave up 14 points. Okay, and the one play that Kirk was when the Eagles were lollygagging around. Okay, I'm a little less upset. All right, my bad. Anyway, though once again, Jordan Davis, I think it was in the third quarter if I'm not mistaken, he made a nice play, and then he came out for the next 5 plays. I think he got a tackle in the backfield, and I was I was giving him credit. I was giving him credit, saying, yeah, nice play, Davis. And then he came out for the next 5 plays. I don't understand. How do you get tired off of this? I'd like to know. You made 1 play, and then he comes out for the next 5 plays. I don't know if it's because he's tired or if that's the rotation, but if he makes a nice play, he should be in there. I could really not see why they would take him out after he would make a 3-yard loss. I don't know. Anyway, and I'm still gonna criticize him until he shows that he can be that player that we drafted, because I still think we should have drafted Kyle Hamilton. I'm just gonna keep calling him out until he can prove that he is, the guy that's gonna replace Fletcher Cox. And we're gonna go on to the secondary, even without Slay and Maddox. And what happened with Slay? He was in there, but he didn't. I don't even know. Did he even play a snap? Because it said he had a forearm injury. I never saw him hurt. I don't know. I really don't know what happened. But even without Slay and Maddox, they were able to shut down the Jags' passing game pretty much completely. As I said, they held Lawrence to below 50% of his passes, and they held Kirk to 2 catches. And Bradbury did have that momentum switching interception in the beginning of the third quarter when the Jags were driving down the field. And also, I think that did take a lot of time off the clock, which helped the Eagles win the game by taking time off the clock. And my man Hosea Scott, I hope I'm saying that right, or maybe it's Josiah Scott. I'm not entirely sure because I haven't really read up on him too much, but he did have an underrated performance. He was definitely being a key factor in shutting down Christian Kirk, and for him only having 2 catches, I do give some credit to him. Bottom line though for the Eagles, they're being the only undefeated team in the league now. Everybody's going to be coming for us, and the offense needs to be like they have been in the past 4 weeks, and that's consistent and dominant. So if they can do those 2 things, and the defense can continue to hold the offenses to 14 points or less, I'm fine with that. And then we're gonna go to the Jaguars. Not really much because I don't really talk about much about the opposing team. But let me tell you one thing. Trevor Lawrence played like a real bum. You know that? Didn't even complete 50% of his passes. For whatever reason, he never saw Hassan Reddick flying at him. I don't understand. Somehow he had a quarterback rating of 84.3. I'm not entirely sure how that happened. I thought his quarterback rating was going to be just as much as his number 16. Yeah, so just overall terrible performance by Trevor Lawrence. Did not look like a number 1 overall pick. Instead, he looked like the 6th round pick. The dual threat rushing attack was shut down for the most part, which is the Jags' heart and soul, which I said before the game, the Eagles need to shut that down to make them pass the ball, which is not their bread and butter. The passing game was absolutely terrible. Nobody got open, and Slay and Maddox were out, and Hosea Scott, who was let's be real, I give him credit here, but he's really he's a practice squad player. Come on. Christian Kirk was supposed to be their major signing, you know what I mean? The defense couldn't stop the run game for the Eagles. And I think if it wasn't raining outside, they would have got torched in the air if they didn't get torched already by A.J. Brown. But the bottom line is that Trevor Lawrence needs to show why he was the number 1 overall pick. And he had terrible decision-making, especially outside the pocket. I think there was one play where he got outside the pocket, and I think it was T.J. Edwards. He was covering their tight end. I don't know who it was, number 85. I keep thinking that's Tim Tebow because that was the number that he wore when he was there for about 2 preseason games. And Lawrence was like, he ran outside the pocket, and T.J. Edwards came up to him, and Lawrence tried to take it with his legs when he had his tight end open, and he got sacked. I was like, obviously, I'm glad that happened. I was telling my grandfather, who I watched the games with, how do you mess that up? Like that was one of the easiest plays that you could make. All you got to do is throw it to him, and he had a 10-yard gain. I don't know, just terrible decision making. Last thing, I'm glad that Doug Peterson got a standing ovation. Obviously, as I said this morning, that he definitely should be the Eagles head coach still. But what are you gonna do? It is what it is. So yeah, I'm glad Dougie got a standing ovation. But I hope he succeeds. But I hope we don't succeed against the Eagles, which fortunately did not happen. Okay, I don't know now, guys. Do I change my Super Bowl pick? I don't know. We'll see. But the Eagles, I think, will probably be on number 1 on my top 5 list this week, unless something happens. All right, unless the Tampa Bay scores 100 points on Kansas City tonight, I don't think I'm moving the Eagles away from number 1. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for this video. Make sure you subscribe and post notifications on. Go subscribe to my brother Ryan the Great Vlogs, and also make sure you follow me on Twitch at Ryan the Great Podcast. And as always, Ryan the Great out. Peace.